I want to move on to that cybersecurity announcement. A spend of $1.35 billion in the short term. Over a 10-year period, it's $15 billion. It's the largest cyber investment in the country. But I hate just reading the numbers. It's not about the numbers, it's what the money actually does and how important it is to protect a lot of entities, not just government installations, it's things like hospitals that are under attack. The Prime Minister said today hospitals are currently being targeted by a sophisticated state-based cyber actor. Well, Michael Shoebridge is the Director of ASPI's Defence Strategy and National Security Program. He joins me now from Canberra. I'll get to personnel in just a moment, Michael, because I think it's very interesting that there's 500 new specialists about to head their way to ASD, Australian Signals Directorate. But I want to ask you, we used the term a lot today, cyber capacity. Now, I hate all of the sort of bureaucratic intelligence speak. Take people through what that actually means tonight and what this money will deliver in terms of new capability.
Peter, you're right. The numbers are big and the language is pretty technical. But it's really recognising that Australia's economy, Australia's businesses and Australia's government now operate in the digital world. So if we didn't know that before the pandemic, we sure know it now. All these people working remotely from their businesses, none of that is possible without digital technology. And what can damage and degrade that digital technology and stop it working is cyber attack. And so this announcement today is the other shoe to drop from what the Prime Minister said a couple of Fridays ago, that Australia is under persistent, sustained cyber hacking from a sophisticated state actor, which he didn't say was Beijing. And this is, what do we do about that? How do we get the people and technology to protect our digital systems, whether they're government, business or individual?
Just on the point of the offensive capability and the defensive capability, we'll start with the defensive capability. That's, as most people would understand, you know, a business that maybe has a patent or commercial in confidence material or its financial records being hacked. What is the information they're after from government? It's cabinet sort of level documents, it's strategy, of course, but it's also disrupting our economy. It's the risk to energy infrastructure when so much of that is reliant on underpinning technology. So lights and traffic lights, for example, water filtration systems, it's all of that, isn't it?
Yes, I think we've got used to thinking of critical infrastructure as things like power systems, you know, power stations, utilities, water, those kinds of things, and maybe the big ports and transport systems. But we haven't got used to thinking about them as all dependent on digital technology. So traffic light systems now, they're increasingly connected to the internet. They're all about software as well as the hardware. It's the same for power stations, solar wind farms, any public transport system and any ports, any big piece of physical critical infrastructure. And you mentioned hospitals. Hospitals is one. It's the digital backbone that makes it all work. And that's the thing that's vulnerable to cyber attack. And as you say, that can be getting hold of information that organisation or company has. You know, if you're negotiating with a company and you know everything about their cost structures and their negotiating position, you can drive a much better deal. Or if you want to stop them operating effectively, then you can disable their systems at a distance through cyber. So that's the threat. And it's much more prevalent now across things that you used to think were more secure, because power systems, solar farms, hospitals are now internet connected in a way they just weren't even 5 years ago.
So we just talked about the defensive capability, Michael. Obviously today's announcement centred around, and it's interesting in itself that it was quite public, the offensive capability. So that's us being on the front foot. I spoke a minute ago about the Australian Signals Directorate. We use that term. You and I have worked in Canberra. We know what that is, but I want to tell people at home this is one of our most critical defence bodies because it handles all this technology, national security. It's the interface and those things. So it's not boots on the ground per se, as you'd know from the regular army, but they're almost like army soldiers, aren't these? There's 500 new experts that will go into the Australian Signals Directorate. What can we say? I'm conscious of all the security rules that you and I would be aware of, but what can we say about the work of ASD for people tonight?
Well, the Australian Signals Directorate is both a poacher and a gamekeeper. So the gamekeeper side of things is protecting Australia's digital systems, not just government systems, but companies and individuals. And it does that through an organisation that is sort of attached to it, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre. But in doing its protective stuff, it understands deeply how these cyber and digital technologies operate. So you've got to understand them really deeply to protect them. Well, that same knowledge lets you be the poacher, which means getting hold of other people's secrets they don't want you to have, or in military operations, damaging or degrading an adversary's electronic system. So think if you can make a missile think that the target it wants to hit is a different place to where it actually is, then you don't have to defeat the missile, you just let it go to the wrong place. That's the kind of capability that a place like ASD builds with the technological understanding that it gains through doing all this defensive stuff.
It's fascinating stuff. I tell you, if I had my time all over again, this is my career, I'd head down this path.